experiences, Dr. Linda saw the other side and returned with gifts of insight, visions, and revealed wisdom. Now those gifts are ongoing, and she's here to share them with you. Get ready to be amazed. It's time for Dr. Linda Salvin's Psychic Solutions podcast with America's original radio psychic, Dr. Linda Salvin, offering up her always fascinating blend of psychic psychology, clairvoyant insights, and expert guests and alternative healing methods. So pull up a chair and get ready for a visit with the one and only Dr. Linda. And now, live from Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Linda Salvin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Psychic Solutions Podcast right here on all the networks you're listening to us on. You can download on 100 different platforms or on YouTube, Dr. Linda Radio for audio, Facebook, and much more. If you have problems, just go to Dr. Linda Radio or go to lindasalvin.com and I'll help you through it. Today is going to be interesting because I've had this title in my head for years and it's finally happening. It's called Psychic and the Shrink. Why? Because Dr. Orlando Cartaya, who is a psychiatrist, he's an MD, has finally agreed to do the show. And you're going to learn a history of this man's journey into medicine. He's also a musician. He has been published with his music. He's very much a Renaissance kind of guy, very liberal, very spiritual. He gets who we are. But at the same time, when it gets to the seriousness of medicine and helping people, whether it's addiction and with 12 steps or hospitalizations, he also helps people heal with ketamine. Now, ketamine can be abused, as you know, and it can also be a miracle drug to help people. And I myself have gone through ketamine treatment with Dr. Cartaya, and it changed a lot of my behavior that I am forever grateful for. So let's bring on Dr. Orlando Cartaya, known as Dr. OJ, from Los Angeles. Hello, welcome to the show. How you doing?
You. Very well.
You're welcome. And I'm thrilled that you're here. It's special to me. I met Dr. Cartaya back in 2007, and here we are in 2024. So a lot of years have gone by. And we, as a planet, as we know, we all went through the lockdown, and we all had challenges, and we all have still some adjustments to make. And we're going to talk about some of the addictions or the abuse or the anxieties and the depression. But before we get into solutions in society, I want to know more about Dr. OJ. So you're going to learn a little history. Why did you talk about growing up, going to military school, and what got you into medicine to help people?
Sure. I went to military academy for some 7 years. Had a few years of public high school, and then went to USC for biological sciences, and then med school at USC thereafter, and trained in psychiatry at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. And
why did you choose psychiatry?
Well, actually, I think for the most part it was, it's emerging. It was emerging of the specialties where there wasn't a lot available when I was first starting out. And so it had most room to grow compared to other subspecialties.
I interrupted you. We're going to say that you also trained after Harbor. What did you get into? Because you've got a resume like a mile long. You've done a lot in your career. So
yeah, I did a fellowship at NIMH, primarily studying trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder.
Which I have explained on the air many times because I've been doing this for 30 years, that I do suffer from PTSD, which is Dr. Cartaya has helped me with from the plane crash in 1981. I mean, it's traumatic to go through a crash, and you've heard different shows. We've had plane crash survivors, plane crash avoiders, plane crash pilots. You know, we've talked about it through the years, but there is an emotional and psychiatric or psychological shift that takes place from trauma. Just like if they go to war or you lose a pet or you lose a person, we shock ourselves. or we can be shocked. So there's different forms of what causes the PTSD. I want to ask you a question on the professional level. Do you think that people are throwing out the term a little too frequently and liberally now? Everybody's got PTSD. Everybody's got this. Everybody's online. Everybody's a star. Do you think the term PTSD has gotten a little overused with social media?
With social media, I would agree with you. It's a bit overdone, certainly, but it's also true that humans are wired in a way that we absorb traumas over time, and so it's a very common condition, to a lesser or greater extent. And certainly the experience of the pandemic reflects that.
In your practice and in mine, and we've talked about it professionally, because there was the depression, the overeating, the abuse of alcohol, more drug abuse, there was domestic violence, child abuse. A lot of the social problems grew during the lockdown when people were thrown together in a home or couldn't get out or were limited to where they could go. So my practice is very different from yours. What did you experience with a lot or some of your patients when it came to really the problems from a mandatory lockdown like that?
Well, a reasonable way of looking at it is that humans are profoundly social creatures, and limiting the social interactions no one gets out for free, in terms of after an experience like the lockdown and the limited social engagement, which grew out from that.
It's been hard. I think even the adjustment, we're a few years out of it. We're 2024. It started in 2020, but I would say the last 16, 18 months has been another shift where we're starting to relax again and getting out there, going to concerts or movies or dining or traveling, and travel's up again, which is great. But there's still, at least within me and some of the people I know, there's still a bit of a hesitation about going out, or now there's a new wave, or there might be another strain. There's always something. But the actual recovery, for lack of a better term, after what we went through, what have been some of the tools you've helped people with, besides maybe some needed medication? But, I've helped people with prayer, meditation. You would do medication. I might have somebody just get out and start walking to realize no one's going to hurt you. My neighbor thought you could catch it from a dog, which you can't. She said, don't get near my dog when we were walking during the lockdown. I said, it doesn't work that way. They didn't understand virus. It's like some people had some wacky ideas. But how did you help people when they came? Were they devastated and become agoraphobic, or were they just afraid that they were going to die? Or what were some of the conditions you dealt with medically?
Primarily emergence of anxiety-related conditions and greater vulnerability to depression. PTSD can be considered a combination of anxiety-related symptoms and mood-related concerns. So it lies between those two spectrums.
Have you seen a lot of people finally get back to their quote normal selves, where they started to capture their essence again without the fear base that happened when we kind of went through that experience? Or did you see a lot of the people recovering once they understand it? Or did you have to medicate a lot or use a holistic approach with each person?
Yes, I think people have reemerged over time. The advent of ketamine treatment it's the most effective approach to treating PTSD and or conditions emerging from isolation and trauma. We've treated PTSD for many decades, but really the emergence of ketamine has represented the first really effective approach in terms of medications available for that type of concern.
There's a lot of controversy about ketamine out there. I was afraid of it at first until I began to do some research upon it and understand that it wasn't going to kill me. Although people like Matthew Perry overdosed and fell into his hot tub and was loaded. They found ketamine in his system. I don't know how many ketamine deaths or overdoses there are, but under medical supervision, people, you can work with a doctor like I did with Dr. OJ, and he's there the whole time. If it gets too intense, because as I learned, depending on the level of anxiety I walked into his office with, that would be part of the determination as to what type of reaction I might have. And I think what you say, the more anxiety, the heavier the experience for a while until it calms down. On the other side of the treatments, I can testify that my moods, my depressions, my anxieties went from, if I was at a 10, I was down to a 5. I don't have any of the reactions I did growing up, or especially after that plane crash. I still have PTSD when I step on a plane. It's not going to go away. But as far as coping in life, coping with rent, shows, people, friendships, travel, everyday activities, it's a whole different ballgame. So if you're really having trouble, if you're here in the LA area, reach out to Dr. OJ. You'll get his information later. If you're outside the area and you need some help or referral, you can contact me. I'd be glad to talk to you about it. But it's nothing to fear. It's really an advancement in the medical world as far as something to really help stabilize. What does it do? Does it react to the neurons in the brain, or does it remove certain things? Somebody wants to know, is this something that could become addictive? We'll get to that question in a moment, but how does the ketamine actually work? I know you inject it. There are tablets if somebody wants to take it orally, right? Sublingually, but it's usually intramuscular, correct?
That's right. And you can also be delivered intravenously with an IV, but a much easier approach is using it as an intramuscular injection, and or sublingually, as you mentioned, with lozenges, be compounded.
I haven't tried that yet, and I'm not willing to do that unsupervised. We have 2 questions coming in, which I would like you to answer. Then we're going to flip off of the medical for a moment and go to your music and then come back, because music and medicine are related. And years ago, in the 70s, I've never been able to find it. There was a book out where somebody wrote a correlation between the music world and the medical world. And to this day, I can't find that book. I may have to search, but it's out there as to the compassion and the feelings and how it all comes together as a universal language. So now, the first question, we've got 3, is ketamine something that could become addictive? Can people actually become addicted like they would to alcohol or certain drugs or smoking or sugar? Is it that type of substance, or does it not have that property associated?
A distinction can be made between psychedelic agents. Ketamine is more properly a dissociative agent, and it is not typical to. It is rare to find an individual that becomes addicted to a psychedelic as opposed to an alcohol or medication, which engenders
like barbiturates or anything that could be a depressant that people become addicted to.
Yeah, substances that can initiate a tolerance, which become utilized at higher doses over time, are typically not psychedelic or dissociative in nature. And so, generally speaking, and by and large, people do not develop tolerance for medication like ketamine, whereas for something like alcohol, it's obvious how much tolerance is part of that picture.
Correct.
In the
And
case of,
go ahead.
in the case of Mr. Perry, um, I think that um, being in a hot tub and anesthetized is a bad combination of.
Well, the heat and the exhaustion and the dehydration on top of being loaded or high or treated, however you want to explain that experience of the ketamine, which is really about 20, 30 minutes, people. It's not an hour. It's not hours long. It's not unless you keep dosing, I would imagine. But I think it was more like he just probably passed out from the heat from the hot tub, knowing he was intoxicated and couldn't clearly think it through. Unless that was my opinion. I wasn't there. You've got it from a different perspective, being the doctor and knowing how it works with the chemical properties in the body.
Right. It's treatment with ketamine or agents similar to it require supervision, and it is a recipe for disaster to be anesthetized in a hot tub.
Yeah, I would think so. It's not a recreational drug, quote unquote. It's not. It's not. I mean, you can get just as high off of a couple of drops of THC oil too. But that they like one time I took some and I got a little too wasted and I went online. What do I do? They just said take some aspirin, enjoy the trip. You don't do that with ketamine. It's a little different. Let's go to the next question. Are there any conditions that would prevent the use of this treatment? So that's a good question. Does anybody qualify for ketamine, or are there parameters that you have to analyze as you get to know your patient prior to authorizing the use of the treatment and taking them through the journey?
Sure. Well, any treatment of whatever sort requires a proper medical analysis of what the diagnosis and what types of difficulties the individual is experiencing. Relative contraindications for treatment with ketamine would include the conditions which have a dramatically unstable concern, such as schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. So if someone has a predilection for or vulnerability to experience psychotic episodes, that should be something that is generally contraindicated for treatment with ketamine-like substances.
Is ketamine, is it a man-made formula that scientists put together? Where did ketamine come from? I mean, it's not like psilocybin, which is a natural mushroom. There's a difference. So is ketamine man-made?
Yes.
Or is it an element out there?
No, it is a man-made compound. Its history goes back to the early 1970s when it was utilized as an anesthetic for. It's basically unique as an anesthetic in that it does not affect respiration. So it was utilized in combat situations dating back to Vietnam, where it was known as the buddy drug, which was issued to service individuals that in the event of experiencing a physical trauma, your buddy, as a term suggests, could provide some relief with an anesthetic, but since it does not have an effect on respiration, could be safely delivered without someone who is more trained, such as an anesthesiologist.
The doctor's anesthesiologist, I guess it's evolved all these years too, as far as the medical world is concerned, and how they probably packaged it and distributed it. We got all these questions, which is great. We'll go to your music in a moment. Let's get through some of these other questions. How long does this have to take effect? In other words, I think they're asking, once the treatment or once the shot or the administration gets into the body, how long before somebody starts to experience a result? if that's what you're asking, pop back up with that, because isn't there usually a protocol of maybe 6 to 8 separate treatments to have the full dosage and protocol to actually feel and see change? Because one shot or one administration is not going to change a person forever, right?
That's correct. The consensus for protocol is for 6 to 8 treatments over the course of 2 to 3 weeks to provide.
Wow, so it's intense.
And a good percentage of individuals find relief once the protocol has been administered. Some individuals may benefit from a 1 or 2 off treatment at 6 or 12 months thereafter, but it's probably the most compelling treatment for PTSD or for a depressive concern. It usually takes, once administered, it takes about 5 minutes before someone begins to experience the effect of the ketamine, and it's somewhere in the vicinity of 35 minutes when someone begins to come out of that dissociative experience.
Yeah, she just redefined it. She said, yes, when it is administered, how long does it take to affect the body? You just answered it beautifully, because it goes into, well, when I had it, and Dr. OJ takes you through a little relaxing journey to calm you down, because there's anxiety and fear because you don't know what's going to happen or what to expect. And it goes right into the arm. And then all of a sudden there's a relaxation. And then if you're not used to knowing what to expect, there's a hallucinatory situation that takes place in the mind. The music, the ambiance, you've got to know you trust the person you're with, because I don't think I would have ever achieved the level of healing and success that I did if I had gone to a mill where they just let you go in with doctors and no personal attention. I personally would not suggest anybody out there just going to a ketamine doctor if you don't have a relationship with that office, because you don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what your side effects might be. Here's the next question. What type of conditions would this treatment be used for or useful for? Like if it's depression, anxiety, PTSD, are there other, maybe addiction, other diagnoses that people benefit from ketamine?
Basically, as you said, depressive concerns, treatment-resistant depression is a good condition to consider ketamine for, and it has increasingly been utilized in chemical dependency units as an adjunct treatment for that recovery.
Great. And then the last question is this like a date rape drug where you lose the ability to move your muscles?
It is an anesthetic, and so for that 30 to 35 minutes, you're going to be best served by lying down during the treatment and not utilizing any heavy machinery for the
No, I'm sorry. I love what you're saying, but I'm thinking back to my what if I had 12 treatments? I loved it after a while. I mean, I call it spinning. You usually got to hold the wall while I'm going to the restroom because you're kind of dizzy. But I got to break up some of the seriousness here. The definite movement at times, it's not that you can't move your muscles. There might be a moment or two where you just can't lift your leg or you can't move your arm because you feel so heavy. You might be, my experience was a little, what would I, just sort of a stunned, blocked, spaced out, laughing. A moment I cried. One time I thought I heard my mom talk to me. I would watch the sunset because I'd be on a high, third or the fifth floor of a building, and it was late afternoon, and I would watch the sky change, and all of a sudden how my body would feel. But you can move. You're not paralyzed. You're not. There's a paralysis sort of feeling at one point if you're like me, where you're coming onto it. It's taking effect. It's in your blood. It's getting into your body. But it's how do you explain it? I mean, it's a trip. But it's magic. I've been on different medications. I come from a family with 3 suicides. I've suffered from an eating disorder all my life. I'm sober, as you people know, because Candy Finnegan and I did the Recovery Wednesday show for the last year here on the network. So I'm not afraid to admit that I've had my own issues, but I've also done the work to heal. And that's the secret. If you really want to get better, there are tools, whether it's 12-step, if it's going to the right psychiatrist, if you want to get into the ketamine, if you want to get into prayer meditation. Sometimes medication's not enough, which is why some people don't respond to medication. Sometimes praying's not enough, which is why some people just don't surrender. But there is a solution for everybody out there. And I searched a lot because a lot of doctors especially didn't understand me after the plane crash. I was introduced to Dr. Kartaya long after, but I still had residual effects that he helped me tame and integrate into my work as well. So professionally, he's the guy you want to talk to because he gets who we are as a human. And this person's saying, I'm thinking about getting the treatment for PTSD, but didn't know how it would hit me. Would you think it would work for this? Of course it'll work for PTSD. It worked on my PTSD. If you're local in Los Angeles, text me or text the number here, or we can have the doctor call you and you'll get his number after the show. Would this be a good treatment for sadness? That's a good question. When people are sad, which is a form of depression and grief, or not letting go, or living in the past, or in that wheel of can't function with joy, would the treatment of ketamine help lift and shift that sadness?
Yes, it is. As I mentioned, the most effective treatment for treatment-resistant depression. I mean, there are certainly other types of medication which can elevate mood and to sunset a depressive state. Among the positives that ketamine is characterized by are the speed at which one can have resolution of those kinds of moods and concerns. A typical mood enhancer, antidepressant, would require 4 to 6 weeks from the time of initiating a starting dose, whereas ketamine can render a positive effect within the first 2 or 3 treatments. So it's much more agile and effective in that regard.
It's different. It's different. I personally wouldn't just jump in without talking to the right doctor. I personally wouldn't get it on your own. There's a question here: is it inpatient or out? It's outpatient. The process itself is probably a half an hour, but the recovery, where you're not going to drive or get into an Uber or get out on the road, is about 3 hours. So I would say you give yourself a good 4 hours to go from, hi doc, how you doing, to I'm okay to get out of the office. Sometimes 3 hours, depending on your body. I also suggest you eat before you have a treatment, because sometimes you can get nauseous or you might get a headache. Everybody's different. And then is this a prescription care or monitored treatment? It's definitely monitored. I would, even if if you were to prescribe the lozenges, which you've offered me and I've never done it, because I don't want to be alone, I would want to stay in the office where you're there monitoring in the event I freak out or something's wrong or I think it's a little too intense, which happened one time. It was a little too much. And we had to forget what you gave me, but something to calm it down, because it's not an overdose. It's just I think it was too much at one point, or my anxiety, whatever. But the beauty about working with a doctor you trust is like you say, oh, I feel this, boom, here's the solution. And all of a sudden there's a stabilization. And that's what you want, people. If you're going to get into ketamine treatments, I, for one, will tell you, people have been telling me for the last couple of years, you look so young, you look so happy, or this. Well, a lot of it's because I don't have the baggage I used to carry. I don't have the sadness. Speaking about sadness, we all have sadness. I still grieve. I still think about the past. I miss my mom, my dog. That's normal. But if it's running your life where you can't be productive or work or do shows or travel or go to weddings and parties, then there's a problem where you're really, like we were saying, after lockdown. What happened to us during lockdown to bring this whole show full circle? We got sad. We got depressed. We got anxious. It was intensified. We couldn't go to certain places. We had to have proof that we had a card, or we had to wear a mask, or we were given rules on how to survive for quite a while. And then as that eased up, we were transformed. And if you remember, I've told you, I had an article out and I called it the hallway of transformation, because all of us were pushed through a new reality, and we're still in it, and it's going to happen, and it'll come out in 2030. We're going through a shift spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. We're all changing. The beauty of somebody like Dr. OJ is that when you need more help, or you don't know how to grasp it, or you don't know how to address it, people like him are the ones to go to. I bring it in from a different perspective spiritually with my healings, the candles. Put the two of us together, you probably have the perfect storm, just like I work with chiropractors from a different perspective. They send me their patients and I take over where certain adjustments and healing stops. I get into the spiritual and metaphysical healing. Dr. Kartaya can help you with the medical treatments and the pharmaceuticals. You're trained in not just psychiatry, but neurology and the pharmacological aspect, which makes you all inclusive with the type of practitioner you are, because some aren't trained as deeply as you are with the neurological side or the pharmacological side as to how the medications will affect the neurological side to help somebody psychologically. People don't understand all the different aspects of what goes on into how you analyze somebody. That's a lot, but I understood what I was saying because I know your background, but there's a lot involved.
Yes, it's long been known that when considering a sort of best effectiveness for treatment of a depressive concern, for instance, a combination of therapy and medication is more effective than either one of those independent of each other. And so
Correct.
it is, it therefore follows that having a relationship with the person who you're treating with is much preferred. So having a treatment where the physician sort of knows your background and with whom you can have an understanding is much preferred to simply having going through a situation where a doctor just writes you a prescription and is not particularly fluent in the types of difficulties which preclude the treatment.
I had that experience when I was a student at San Francisco State. I had a doctor, my gynecologist actually, put me on different forms of diet pills. I think I was on 5 at one time. And after I got out of grad school and I went cold turkey, not knowing that there was a withdrawal process, had I been properly monitored, which is what Dr. OJ is talking about, if somebody really took care of me and understood what they were prescribing and my reaction or what was going to happen, or if I became addicted, which I did, not knowing, because I was 13 when I was put on diet pills, and I was 24 when I came off. And that's a long run of not knowing there was an addictive process. And that was before the treatment centers. That was back in the 70s. So it wasn't out there to figure out how to get sober or how to detox. Not back then. I wasn't aware of all of that until the 80s. But let's get back to, addiction is real, people. I don't care what people say. Oh, no, it's just a mental thing. Oh, you can get off it, or you can stop eating, or you can stop drinking, or you can stop smoking, or you can do this. No, it's not that easy. There's a mental obsession, a physical addiction. There's an emotional attachment. And again, healing comes spiritually, as you've learned through other shows. And if you don't remember what it is, just go back to my YouTube and look up all the different Recovery Wednesday shows with Candy Finnegan. If you want help and you're in the Los Angeles area, or I'm sure if you're outside the Los Angeles area, Dr. Cartaya, if you fly him in, he'll come and do the treatment with you. And I'm going to brag about him. He's got a lot of celebrity clients. Can't tell you names, but he's not just a corner doc. He's not a flake. He doesn't write scripts just because you ask for it. He's not one of those kind of doctors that are going to just, scam you or give you scripts to get you in trouble. Nope. Monitors everything. Very thorough. In many ways, you've changed my life, and I want to thank you on the show, and I've thanked you in person, but you've also been very supportive of my career. So professionally, there's outside stuff besides there's different aspects of the professional integration here. People, if you're looking, and I've bounced around from different therapists, I have, but you got to find one that hears you, listens, isn't just like pushing it through. It's different going to a therapist versus somebody like me. I do all the talking because I'm the psychic, and you're paying me to tell you what I know about you without asking. On the other side, you go to somebody like Dr. OJ to talk about all the problems in a different way. He has a different solution. My prescription for the soul is the Candles with Wicks of Wisdom. His main prescription for the soul, I think, is ketamine, above and beyond not only just the different medications he can prescribe, but if you need help, I would not have brought him on the show if I didn't think he could help you, enlighten you, teach you, because you know the type of people I've had on the show this past year. And, there's this other side that I mentioned about Dr. OJ and myself. You can see my guitar in the background, which I'm playing again. The musical side, and you've been in bands and you've published songs. So if you took off the white coat and you got on stage, what kind of music are you doing? Are you doing punk rock? Are you doing funk? Are you doing rock and roll? What's your style of music when you're not the doctor?
Generally speaking, I guess you would put it into a surf punk category, kind of high energy, and expressive, kind of percussion heavy type music.
It's my fault. I was so wrapped up in getting this show produced with the pre-production, I completely forgot to get some of your songs, which I've got some of the MP3s. We could have uploaded and play them, but we will do that again on another show. But I've heard the music, and it's happy music, and it gets you moving, and it's just, you come alive. And it should get into the hands of somebody out there to overshadow some of what's out there that they call music. I don't know what it is anymore. But how old were you when you started music? Were you a child? Did you grow up loving music? Did you decide to go into medicine versus music? Did you want to be a full-time musician and then didn't think you'd make it, so you went into something with the day job? What happened?
I started playing in probably at age 16 or so. Before beginning college, I had a couple of years off where I just played music and pumped gas for the most part, and that was long enough to convince me
you better get a job.
Right.
But you still do music, you still play. How many guitars do you have? What are you down to? I don't know how many you've sold or gotten rid of, but you've got quite a collection.
Yes, I had a bit of an eBay habit some years ago. So I think I'm down to somewhere in the 30 range, I think.
Is that compulsive buying? Do you need some help with that? No, he's got gorgeous instruments, people, and you play all of them, and each one, you have to understand every guitar has a different sound and tone because of the wood and who makes it, and the type of strings, and what you play, and the hole in the middle. It all comes together as to why that guitar sounds one way, and then the other 29 guitars Dr. OJ is talking about, they're all different. They're different manufacturers, different years, different woods, different necks. Everything comes together just like in the universe. There are no accidents as to how everything works, like a big tapestry. We've got about 10 minutes left in the show. It goes fast. Somebody wants to know if it's bass or six string.
Most six strings, and I think I have a couple of 12-string guitars still in the herd, as it were.
In the herd. You want to go get your guitar and play a song?
Okay,
that was not where we're going. Maybe next time we'll do it. Maybe we'll play a song and we'll both learn it together and do a little jam on the next one. But let's go back to, okay, you're married, you travel, get into some of your personal activities besides music and medicine. What do you love? The Stones. Oh my God, he's a Stones freak. What, do you go to every single Stones concert?
No, but I saw them a couple of weeks back at the SoFi Center, and it's an inspiration to see 80-year-old musicians, and
they're out there. We got Paul, we've got Dylan, we've got Mick, well, I'm going to see Joni Mitchell in October. She's what, 84? Our generation, maybe it's all those drugs and pot that we did as a kid. It preserved us, right? Maybe there's some truth to all of that as to what keeps us healthy, but we got kind of cuckoo along the way. And if you do get crazed along the way, there's people like Dr. OJ that can help you folks. Where can people find you if they want to call you or reach out to you? Is there an email address or a phone number?
Yeah, an email address is my last name, Cartaya, MD @gmail. Or they can reach out to you, I suppose, and have you forward that information.
Okay. All right. So again, it's Cartaya, MD @gmail. That's CARTAYAMD @gmail. And those of you that have been participating in the show, that's terrific. And if you do decide you want to break out of your fear of growth, I'm here as a healer, medium, psychic, metaphysical person. As you know, I do candle magic healings and all that, and I have for 30 years. OJ's been in practice. How many years have you been in practice? 30, almost 40?
I think 27 at this point.
I guess with all your education and all of the internship and everything until you got in. Okay, so 20, but we're both seasoned people. We're both doctors in a different way. I'm a PhD, he's an MD. We have solutions. We went through a horrific time with lockdown, people. A lot of us lost people, unfortunately, in the hospitals or at home, and some of you couldn't graduate, or some of you couldn't have the wedding, or they were drive-by opportunities, which was a shock for a lot of people, and it hurt. And questions would arise, and then the depression or the fear or the anxiety, or can I get back out there? Am I going to be exposed? Am I going to get sick again? I had the shots. I got sick. Nothing's foolproof, but we're still here, and it's 2024, and you're going to live forward. And if you need help, by all means, reach out to Dr. Cartaya, CartayaMD @gmail, or contact me, which you'll learn at drlinda@lindaselvin.com. And my toll-free number will show at the end, where you can always leave a message, and then I would forward it, of course. So for somebody who's listening and watching and thinking, well, isn't that kind of wacko that a psychic needs a shrink, or she's had ketamine, or why does she talk like that? But just like you said earlier, where it's all part of the human factor. We're all human. Just because I have a gift in an odd way doesn't mean you don't have an amazing gift in your way. This man's spiritual. This man is intelligent. This man will say things you don't even understand what he's saying. Then it hits because of this. You know, we're all, like he says, we're all crazy, which we are, but it's a fun crazy, especially if there's music involved. And the main thing is you want to heal. Remember, the definition of health is the state of mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. Disease. Dr. Kartaya treats the whole body, even though the mental disease, mental health is really important. Our addictions take over us, hurts our jobs, our families, ourselves. There are ways out. If you really have some dark moments or you're really going through something traumatic, loss, war, with me witnessing and surviving a plane crash, it's not like a ride at Disneyland. It wasn't that simple. It took its toll on me, and it still does 43 years later. It's just part of who I am now. There are people like Dr. OJ that will help you. In closing, to the person that might be, does this treatment affect your abilities in any way, or can it help you predict better? Okay, you're asking me. My abilities changed afterwards. I still predict. The only thing I don't predict as easily is the timing. Timing changed, not just because of the treatments, I believe. I would say timing changed with all the psychics I know after lockdown. For some reason, very few of the metaphysical people, the psychic people, can tell time of events like we used to. Don't know what happened. Don't know why it shifted. But again, it's that whole hallway of transformation, that something took place psychically and emotionally with us, that it's harder for me to say, oh, it's going to happen in October. I'm pretty good around the time, but I hate it when people say, but you said it's going to happen in August. Well, it's still July. Wait till August. Let's see what happens. But you said, I'm not 100%. I don't know a psychic that is 100%. But yes, it did shift me a little bit, but it also gave me more clarity and confidence. And I don't question it as much. My book will be out by the end of the year, folks, so you can read all about that. Dr. OJ, in closing, what's your last final words to people out there who struggle?
I think that it's important, as you mentioned, for people to be clear that there are options and there are many resources available, and so it's important for people to take away the clarity that things can be improved, and that there are many fine professionals available, and whether it's by way of a spiritual answer, as metaphysics experts are able to provide, such as Dr. Linda, or therapy or medications, that people have the clarity to seek different resources, and to be clear that things can be improved.
We all need somebody. We all need somebody. We do.
Take the village.
I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know how hard it is for you to give up 50 minutes. Trust me, I know how hard it was to program this in your day. And it means a lot to me that you showed up and did this and answered these questions. And I am honored to know you. I'm grateful for you. And there's people out there. This will be up on YouTube. It's live now, but in about 72 hours, this will go out to about 100 different platforms. And eventually people will start to download, and you never know what's going to happen. So one more time, if you'd like to reach Dr. Kartaya, you can email him at Kartaya, CARTAYAMD@gmail.com. And of course, you know how to reach me. I want to wish you a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon. I want to thank everybody for asking all these questions with Dr. Kartaya. And I'm Dr. Linda Salvin. I'm going to say goodbye to Dr. Kartaya. I'm going to close the show. And for those that have been here with me for the last year on this network, this is my last show, people, on this network. I'm going elsewhere. If you want to know more, you can follow me on YouTube or Facebook, or email me, and I'll tell you where you can find me next. So Dr. Kartaya just helped me put like the cherry on top of the sundae. I capped it off with something really important, which is healing, mental health, spiritual health, mental well-being, spiritual well-being. You got a problem? We have solutions. I'm Dr. Linda Salvin. I'm an MPH, a PhD in metaphysics. You just heard from Dr. Kartaya, who's an MD in psychiatry, neurology, and he specializes in pharmacology, so he understands what to do to treat somebody. If you need help, people, we all need it. It's out there. If I can help shed some light for you on your path and your journey, let me help you plant the seed like I have for the last 30 years in my career. It's been a wonderful year here. Thank you, Rebel. I'm going to bring you on for just a second and say goodbye. And you've been the best. Working with you has been delightful, and I honor all that you've done. And until next time, thank you, everybody. This is Psychic Solutions Podcast. I'm Dr. Linda Salvin, signing off.
Thank you, Dr. Linda.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed Dr. Linda Salvin's Psychic Solutions Podcast. You can reach Dr. Linda at 888-509-1077 or at lindasalvin.com. Need a breakthrough of your own? Ready for answers or insights nobody else has? Reserve your own one-on-one in-person chat. Dr. Linda isn't just for other people. Dr. Linda gets results for you. And it's easy. Contact details are on screen now. Just click on lindasalvin.com or call toll-free 888-509-1077. That's lindasalvin.com or toll-free at 888-509-1077.